Greetings, chess players. My name is Coach Tortoise, and I've been teaching chess a long time. Today we are going to learn about check, checkmate, and stalemate. Check is the word we use to refer to the condition of when a player's king is being attacked by a piece or a pawn. If your king is in check, you must find a way to stop the threat. There are only 3 ways to get out of check. In this position, the rook on c8 is checking the black king along the 8th rank. One way to get out of check is to move out of check. Here, the black king moved to d7 and thus is no longer in check by the white rook on c8. In fact, the black king is now threatening the rook himself. Another way to get out of check is to block what is checking you. In this position, the rook on a7 prevents our king from moving to the 7th rank. The rook on c8 is checking our king. But we have one way to get out of check. We can use our knight on e6 to block the rook's check. The final way to get out of check is to capture the piece that is checking you. Once again, our king cannot move to the 7th rank because we are not allowed to step into check. The rook on a7 is controlling the 7th rank. We cannot block the check from the rook on c8, but we can capture the rook with our knight. Again, there are only 3 ways to get out of check. You can move the king to a safe square. You can block the check. Or you can capture the piece or pawn that is checking you. However, you are never allowed to leave your king in check. If a player can't capture what is checking the king, block the check, or move the king to safety, then the king is not just in check, but it is checkmated. Checkmate is the main goal in chess. The player who checkmates his or her opponent's king is declared to be the winner. Of course, if your king is checkmated, then you have lost the game. Here, black's king is in check by the rook on c8. The rook on a7 controls the 7th rank. The king cannot move in to check in the 7th rank, and the king cannot block the check on the 8th rank or capture the rook on the 8th rank. Therefore, black's king is checkmated, and white would be declared the winner. Let's look at a simple procedure for checkmating a king. Here, white has a 2-rook advantage. Black has no pieces or pawns. The first thing white wants to do is play a cutoff move. By moving the rook to the 6th rank, black's king can no longer move forward because you are not allowed to step into check. The black king moves to d7. Think of the rook on a6 as your front foot and the rook on h1 as your back foot. Step forward with your back foot and say check. The rook on h7 is checking the black king. The black king cannot move to the 6th rank because the rook on a6 has him cut off. Therefore, the black king will have to move to the 8th rank. Now the rook on a6 is our back foot. Take a step forward with your back foot and say check. The rook on h7 prevents the king from moving forward to the 7th rank. The rook on a8 is checking the king along the edge of the board. Black cannot capture the rook that is checking their king, nor can black block the rook that is checking their king. Therefore, this is a checkmate, and white has won the game. Let's look at another example. In this example, it is black that has the 2-rook advantage. First things first, we play a cutoff move. The rook in the 4th rank prevents the king from moving forward. Black moves their back foot and takes a step forward, saying check. The king cannot stay in the 3rd rank and cannot move to the 4th rank. Therefore, the king will have to move to the 2nd rank. Back foot forward, check. White's king cannot stay in the 2nd rank, cannot move to the 3rd rank, and therefore will have to move to the 1st rank. Back foot forward, checkmate. Let's look at another example. This time, white has the 2-rook advantage. First things first, we play a cutoff move. Black's king now can no longer move to the 4th rank. Back foot forward, check. Black's king must back up. Back foot forward, check. Black's king must back up. Notice, black's king is now threatening our rook. But rooks are faster than kings, so we slide our rook, making sure to keep a minimum separation between our feet. Otherwise, we cannot walk forward. Back foot forward and check. Black's king has to move back again. Back foot forward and checkmate. Let's look at another example. You can use this checkmating technique on any edge of the board. Here, black has the 2-rook advantage, and white is closest to the edge of the board, that is the H file. Therefore, to save time, black plays a sideways cutoff move. White's king cannot move into the F file. because we are not allowed to step into check. Back foot forward, check. White's king now must move to the h-file. Back foot forward, checkmate. Let's look at one last example. This time, black has a king and a queen. Because queens can move on files, ranks, and diagonals, we can have the queen fill in for the role of the rook so that we can do another rook roller checkmate. Again, we start with a cutoff move. The white's king cannot move to the f-file. Back foot forward, check. White's king must move to the h-file. Back foot forward, checkmate. This time, the checkmate being delivered by a queen instead of a rook. When you are trying to checkmate your opponent's king, you still need to be careful. If a player is not in check, but does not have a legal move, we call it a stalemate. A stalemate is a draw or tie in chess. If it is black to move in this position, black cannot make a legal move. Even though white is clearly winning the game, the black king is stalemated, and thus the result is a draw. I will draw arrows to demonstrate the squares that the rooks are controlling. As you can see, the black king is totally boxed in. Since it is black's move and he has no legal moves, the game is a stalemate, which is a draw or tie in chess. However, if black just had one pawn on the board, he would have a legal move, and therefore white could checkmate black by using the technique we've already learned today. For example, black cannot move his king, but his pawn moves to a5. White would move one rook far away from the king. Black's pawn moves to a4. White would slide the other rook far away from the black king. Black's pawn moves to a3. White would move one rook forward, checkmating the black king. Again, the rook in the 8th rank checks the black king. Black cannot take the rook in the 8th rank, cannot block the check coming from the rook in the 8th rank, and cannot move to the 7th rank because of the rook on g7. I hope you learned a lot in today's lesson about check, checkmate, and stalemate. Before you proceed to your quiz on dailychessmusings.com, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Daily Chess Musings YouTube channel. Once again, I am your host, Coach Tortoise. See you next time. Thank you.